Many people turned around in delight at the company. The pretty woman was glowing with happiness, jokingly trying to calm down the frisky trio. Two twin boys and an older girl were chatting merrily, teasing each other. When one of the boys yelled a seemingly innocent nickname at the girl, she jumped up and tried to catch up with the offender, and it was clear that it was not a grudge, but a desire to run. The other of the brothers immediately joined in with a shout, Me too!" On a sunny day, they did not seem to be in any kind of hurry, but were just strolling along the park. Having played a game, the kids ran a little ahead, but the girl quickly returned. "Mommy, come quickly with me. There is an old woman. I think she needs help. She is sitting alone and crying." The little girl took her mother by the hand and pulled her deeper into the park. On one of the benches was indeed sitting an elderly woman. She was wearing a moth-eaten coat, and her feet were covered with shabby slippers, one of whose soles was about to fall off. Her clothes were clean, but already badly used up. The woman sat staring into the sky, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Can I help you? Is something wrong?" Alexia, the mother of the 3 beautiful toddlers, spoke to her. The woman, as if waking up from a dream, slowly looked up at her with tearful face. "How can you help me, young girl? No one can help me anymore. I am alone, without a family and a home, and no one in the world needs me," she answered. There was so much pain in her voice that Alexia wanted to do something to help. She sat down and said, "And you tell me what happened. Maybe it will be easier." After a little silence, as if remembering, she began her story. When she was young, she had a reputation as a well-known person in the city. For many years, she had worked as the deputy director, so to speak, the right hand at one of the largest manufacturers. Since most of the population had worked in that organization over the years, everyone knew Susan Hicks very well, while respecting the stern but fair manager. It was at her home company that she once met her husband. It was only a handsome man returning from the army that took Susan's heart. She had just come to the company after university and started her career as a foreman. A romance quickly swirled between the young people, and they soon had a modest wedding ceremony. They lived heart to heart almost till their 40th anniversary. They had 2 beautiful children during their marriage. The first was a daughter, and just a year and a half later, they had a son. Their home has always been filled with warmth and comfort, but it seems that their parents missed something in their education, and they realized it too late many years later. Only after graduating from high school, the children left, deciding to live their own lives. Nelson and Carol loved a wild and cheerful life, and they knew that it would be impossible to behave in this way under their parents' wings. Susan was very worried about them, but as time passed, the children settled down a little, and she calmed down. Both of them had families, but their exploitative attitude toward life had not disappeared. They thought only of themselves, not caring at all about their elderly parents. Neither of them offered to help around the house, even though the roof needed replacing and the fence was crooked. They had one excuse. "Excuse me, a lot of things to do and worry about. We will continue sometime." Even when her father fell ill and hardly got out of bed for several years, Susan coped with everything herself. The children did not even suggest buying medicine. Her husband passed away 8 years ago. That was the last time she saw her daughter and son. Left alone with her illness alone, Susan Hicks quietly lived out her life. Her children rarely called, and dryly inquiring about her affairs quickly ended the conversation, citing lack of time. She was used to that, no longer demanding or expecting anything else. But about a month ago, the woman was greatly surprised by the dramatic change in the children's behavior. One morning, a car stopped at the gate and Susan's daughter got out. Carol took 2 bags out of the trunk and headed for the house. "Mommy, meet a guest," the daughter shouted unnaturally. "Your daughter is here. She brought milk." It was really the first time in years that she had brought her mother some food, and even some pills. The unexpected arrival and the whole behavior of Carol suggested that she came for a reason. She obviously needed something. "What is it? Why did you come?" Susan asked right from the threshold. So the daughter said that she and Nelson were in almost dire financial straits. They needed money badly. There were no more loans from banks. They had a bad credit history. The only option left was to sell the parents' house. The daughter spoke to her mother for the first time in her life in a very gentle voice. "Mommy, you're alone now. You need care, medicine, food, and everything. With us, you will be well. Live and enjoy life." Susan felt miserable about the house she and her husband had built from nothing. The couple hoped that it would go to the children, but the daughter was determined and continued to describe what a safe and secure life awaited her mother in their home. "If you get tired of me, you will move to Nelson, and so you will alternate and even choose where you like it best." The daughter winked merrily, but it was felt that she was very tense. Knowing her mother's character, she did not even suspect that she would be able to talk her down so easily. Soon the house was sold. The money was instantly divided among the children. Susan did not receive even a penny from the sale, as if she had nothing to do with the building. Coming to her father's grave, she cried and said, "Well, we built with you, built, and the children only want money. We did not teach them to work, and their needs are big." As soon as the house was sold, Susan Hicks felt that she had become a burden on the children. She always tried to be as quiet as the grass, not interfering in their way of life. But it did not help. Children in every way tried after the first days of his mother to lump her to each other. The woman was smart and understood that it could not last that long, because sooner or later, they, tired of playing pretend, could give her to a special home for similarly lonely old people. Susan did not wait for such an embarrassment, and quietly collecting her things left on her own, not knowing where, blessing that there was only one small bag with which she was sitting in the park. By the time she had finished her story, Alexia was already in tears. When she had calmed down a little, the young mother of the trio, who was laughing nearby, said, "You know, there are no unnecessary people on earth. We need you. You have no idea how much I need someone like that. I work and there's no one to look after these hurricanes. Our apartment isn't very big, but it's not too crowded." She was able to talk to the confused, resisting woman. As they walked, it was time for Alexia's revelation. She told the woman that this trio was not her own family. She had once met a very charming man by chance. At the time, she was working at a local cafe, and Brian was in the company of co-workers and celebrating his birthday. From the first minute, it was as if they felt they were made for each other. Asking her out on a date, Brian told her on the first night that he was married. When he found out about the regular cheating, he immediately filed for divorce. The ex disappeared a week after the divorce, leaving him in the care of his 3 children. Alexia was not frightened by this at all, and she quickly found a common language with the kids. Just a couple of months later, they realized they couldn't live without each other and submitted a completed application to the local county clerk's office for a marriage license. The wedding reception was celebrated modestly at the cafe where Alexia worked. Only close friends came. Brian was a fireman, and one day when a warehouse outside of town caught fire, he died after being crushed by a fallen beam. She had no memory of her husband's funeral. She was unconscious. Her acquaintances immediately began to persuade her to give her children to the state, but she could not even imagine such meanness to them. Shortly before his death, husband took out a loan and bought a nice spacious house. Alexia, of course, had nothing to pay for it, and after a couple of months, she and the children moved into their 2-room apartment on the outskirts of town. She had no idea what and how they would live. The children's mother never showed up, and there was certainly no help to be expected from her. In the first years, her husband filed for deprivation of parental rights. Left alone, Alexia could not work in the cafe, where she had to go out in shifts day and night. It was impossible to leave the children alone for so long, so she had to quit her job and become a cleaner in order to spend more time with the little ones. As they approached the entryway, they both cried again, and from the outside it seemed as if the women's faces were getting brighter. The tears washed away all the past hurts and helped them breathe a sigh of relief. The children called Susan grandmother from the first minute and treated her as if she were their own and most beloved. The woman could no longer dream of such happiness. Every night the kids would become silky, just for their grandmother to tell a story. As soon as the kids fell asleep to the lulling voice, Susan Hicks met Alexia tired from work, and they could talk over tea until midnight. A woman who had spent her entire childhood in an orphanage, it was as if she wanted a mother's care and love as an adult. Alexia shared her joys and sorrows every day with Susan, as if she were her own mother. The town was small, and as soon as someone she knew once saw her walking with her 3 little ones, she immediately reported her to her own children. Carol wasn't even too lazy to come to the address and watch the happy mother from afar unhappily. Grandma was happily playing with the 2 boys in the sandbox, cheerfully helping them make sand cakes. At this moment, she was clearly enjoying life, but Carol understood that she could not and did not want to take back the mother, so she quietly left. Susan lived happily at Alexia's house for about 2 years, but one morning she became ill with heart trouble, and an ambulance was called to take her to the hospital. She never returned from there. She died in her sleep just a day later. They say she had a happy smile on her face. Alexia first found the addresses of Susan's children and reported her mother's death, but none of them even came to the cemetery. Alexia had to borrow money from work and make her own funeral arrangements. She really missed the companionship to which she was so used to. For a long time, she cried silently at night, remembering Grandma Sue. But life went on as usual, and she began to get used to the loss of her loved one. One day, the phone rang at home. The man on the other end of the line said she had to go to court. She thought at first there might be a mistake, but all the information matched hers. What a surprise it was when Susan Hicks' will was read to her. It turned out that while her husband was still alive, the woman had opened an account with him at one of the banks. It was more than 30 years ago. At that time, they still hoped to help the children. Over the years, the amount of the deposit accrued a decent amount of interest. Susan Hicks bequeathed all that to Alexia and her children, because she was very disappointed in her own after selling her house. Moreover, they did not know anything about their mother's savings. Only Susan and her husband knew about the deposit. Alexia couldn't believe what happened for a long time, but when she received the full amount, the first thing she did was renovate her 2-room apartment. Then she decided to realize her children's dream of going to the sea, and she went with them on vacation to the coast. One day on the shore, when she was playing with the children, a very pleasant gray-haired man joined them. He almost immediately found common ground with the children, and they did not leave his side all day long. Alexia watched from the sidelines and felt as if the children had known him since birth. It was so easy for them to do everything. I wish I had a husband and a father like that, and I wouldn't need anything else in life, Alexia thought. Apparently, that was a prayer, and she was heard. 4 months later, the couple were married and lived happily ever after in Christopher's country house. The children immediately after the wedding, he registered in his name, and a year later, he became the father of another boy. Alexia did not believe in miracles, but God gave her a son. This happy family was known in the whole neighborhood because they were almost always and everywhere together.